Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has certainly not placed the country in an ideal position for the government to have a more immediate response to rising gas prices. The Economic Affairs Minister today defended the government's decision not to remove value-added tax from fuel, adding that they anticipate fuel prices will eventually return to normal. Cleopatra Murphy tells us more.
As the price of fuel soars, now exceeding $6 at the pump at two fuel suppliers in New Providence, Minister of Economic Affairs Senator the Honourable Michael Halkitis insists there is very little government can do to reduce the cost of filling up for motorists. He claims because the Bahamas imports basically everything, it will be disproportionately impacted by global events, namely the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine that has been driving up the cost of fuel.
That brings to immediacy the fact that we need to be concentrating more on renewables, all right? Minus any sort of geopolitical disruption, we can expect to see fuel prices go higher. Approach, $200 in the next 20, 25 years, just because the cheap sources will be depleted and it becomes more difficult to mine it. And so that even makes it more important what we're doing here today, shifting to renewables.
While Barbados has capped value-added tax on fuel for the next 6 months, Halkitis says there has been a trade-off, as it has also increased taxes in other areas.
I know there was one particular country that is being continually referenced. If you read the entire proposal, you would see, for example, in that country that reduced the VAT on the fuel. They introduced a 15% corporate tax surcharge. They also introduced something called a pandemic levy, which is a surplus tax on individual incomes, and they raise taxes on other forms of energy. So it's not in isolation.
The opposition previously called on the Bahamas to follow Barbados' lead to ease the financial burden of fuel costs on Bahamians, with Prime Minister the Honourable Philip Davis similarly asking in the House of Assembly if Bahamians wanted to pay the resulting taxes. Halkitis contends the public cannot look at the issue in isolation because if costs are removed from one area, it has to be placed somewhere else.
We are not unsympathetic, we're very sympathetic, because the nature of our economy is that rising energy prices impact the cost of transportation. We import, most of what we produce, so that means that price impact will be felt through that. The price of gas at the pump for individuals and taxi drivers and bus drivers and all of that.
At the end of the day, the Economic Affairs Minister says everything must be looked at taking into context the country's financial sustainability as it emerges from the COVID-19 pandemic. Cleopatra Murphy, ZNS Network News.